just wanted to clear my phone. So are you go live now?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for the Real Deal with StudentProCONNECT. StudentProCONNECT is a social networking website and app where students and industry professionals can connect. If you are a student or someone looking to change your career, you will be able to find valuable insight firsthand from people in the field. If you are an industry professional, this is a great way to give back and share your story to inspire the new generation. The purpose of this segment is to provide the real deal behind what it takes to start and thrive in various fields. Every segment will feature an industry professional telling their story and sharing their insight. If you have not done so already, please sign up on StudentProConnect by going to our website, www.studentproconnect.com, or downloading our app, which is available both in Google Play and the App Store. Please also subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch all of our shows and follow us on YouTube and Facebook. Please feel free to type in your comments and questions during the show. Now, without further ado, I am very pleased to present our guest for this evening. He is an international medical graduate and currently a board-certified physician specializing in internal medicine with over 15 years of experience under his belt. Welcome, Dr. Frederick Laborde.
Thank you, StudentProCONNECT, for having me. It's a real pleasure to be part of that good experience.
Thank you for having. We're looking forward to all the insight that you'll be giving us tonight. So let's get right into it. So, international medical graduates, foreign medical graduates, we've kind of heard these terms used interchangeably. The one thing that they do share is that these are to describe physicians who have graduated from a medical school outside of the country where they intend to practice. So can you kind of tell us what is the difference between an IMG and an FMG?
Well, there is not a real difference between the two. Back in the days, initially, they used to call anybody who come to the system as FMGs because initially it was mainly people from outside the United States, meaning foreign, people coming to the country, trying to work as physician, work, and they were basically named as FMGs. But for the last 10 years, also there was a big shift in the paradigm, where you will have a lot of students, actually American grad people that are that went to college in America end up going to medical school in the foreign country. So those people, they were American, but the only thing they go to medical school in another country. So to mix the two, because they have at a certain point they have to mix them together. They call them more IMGs instead, international medical graduates,
Got
meaning
it.
anybody who will graduate outside of the United States as a
Okay.
as a medical doctor.
Got it. Got it. So according to the Federation of State Medical Boards, most of the IMGs are coming from India at 23%, followed by the Caribbean, Pakistan, Philippines, and Mexico. So that's where we're seeing the influx coming through. And according to the National Resident Match Program, which is the agency responsible for matching residents every year, this last match was the largest in NRMP history, and also the highest match rate for IMGs. So that's kind of interesting. It seems like IMGs are really holding their weight when it comes to the whole matching system over here in the US. The number of US citizen international medical graduates matched 61%, which was the highest match rate since 1991. And non-US citizens as well, they actually broke their 3-year trend of decline, and also matched at 61%, which is their highest since 1990. Why do you think there is this big influx?
So first and foremost, you have to look at those numbers and be very, a little careful about it. As I was saying initially, the foreign medical graduate, meaning somebody who comes to the U.S., because you are resident, because you immigrated to the country, or your family, or for some reasons you come to the country, you were a doctor in your country, and you decide to pass those tests. So basically, you to get into the system. But there is another group, basically that's even bigger, which is what we call the American grad. Those kids that goes to college here in the United States, right? And because they cannot find medical school here, or for one reason or another, they decide to go to medical school in their country. And that's the reason why you see a lot of Indian. You're gonna see more people from India, because obviously a lot of second generation citizen, right? Their family would send them back in their home country just to the medical school after college, if they don't find it, a medical school here. Same thing, you will find actual American who goes to the Caribbean built school, medical school, basically what training, or there was like exchange, right, from American kid coming to those school in the Caribbean, going to the school in India. That's why you're gonna see there was the highest number in from those area. But for sure, in general, you're gonna see that I mean those statistics are true. And regarding the matching process, also, that's what you're gonna see this increase in IMGs as well. Mainly, a lot of those, those kids, as we call them, those medical students, who goes to another country, to go to the Caribbean, to go to India, some, you know, even in Europe, going to do their medical school over there. Basically, they will come, and that's why you're gonna see there was a highest number of IMGs, which is not necessarily the people coming here as we call quote unquote foreigners. Right? You see a lot of second generation, third generation citizen, and even American, people that were born and raised here with first generation citizen going to the Caribbean. I find a lot of them, coming and get into the system. They can't find a medical school here. As you know, it's a little bit difficult, and we'll get into that further, in that
Got it.
discussion. You're gonna see those people coming there. Yeah, that was a great year for the IMGs in general.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that you bring up. I mean, a lot of times when we think of IMGs, we think it's always foreigners. We always think it's people coming from other countries coming here, but there's also, that portion of that portion that's actually American that are actually doing their medical school in foreign countries. So that's a good perspective. We never thought about that. So that's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the reason why they're calling them now mostly IMGs and
Got it.
then FMGs as it used to be.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I think there's a big misconception that IMGs are not really needed here in the US because there's enough physicians. I guess, first of all, do you agree with that statement?
Definitely,
No.
definitely a big misconception, and it's not true.
Yes.
And whenever you see there is a couple of influx, meaning there is a need, right? When you
Yes.
see a lot of people coming for something, you see a lot of different people, there is a need. And as you have a great slide here showing, the needs for physician here in the United States,
Yes.
even with all those IMGs, you know,
Yes.
the need is still there. We can't really fit all of it. And even with the IMGs going into residency, you see some states actually create programs for people to not, because the residency program are not enough, not enough. There are
Wow.
not enough residency program to actually train the amount of doctors that are needed here in the United States. So you see some states create some program, assisted physician, a lot of different program, we have special needs where they will use some of those IMGs who can't match for some reason to, so they can work in the system because the needs is actually there. And even with the IMGs, it's not complete.
Exactly. I mean, and let's just look at the stats really quick. So, according to the Association of American Medical Colleges, it's projected that the United States will actually face a shortage between 54,000 and 139,000 physicians by 2033. That is insane. And they're also projecting shortages in so many different specialties as well. Again, just looking at the stats here, 93 and 17,800 medical specialists, surgical specialists, and other specialists, pathologists, neurologists. So it's all over. It's across the board in terms of all the specialties. And then another great point, which was conducted by this study by the AMC, is that a lot of physicians are entering that retirement age. So they find that more than 2 of 5 active physicians will actually be 65 or older within the next decade, which again, showing the need, right?
Exactly, exactly. And the problem is that, to become the doctors, and obviously we will go to that process further in our conversations, I hope. To become a doctor, there are different steps, right? As here in the United States, you have to go to college, have a medical school, and so on and so forth. And then after that, passing some tests and go into residency. While there are different steps to go there to finally be on the floor or on the clinic taking care of people. So what happened here? The truth is there were not enough medical schools here in the United States, believe it or not, right? That's number one. So the United States is not actually trained enough medical student, like blank medical schools. Now, going out to residency, we don't have enough residency program. So even though you see a lot of IMGs trying to fill out those spots, trying to meet the need, we don't have enough residency programs actually to train people to go on the field, treating and taking care of people. So that's why from the residency, the amount of American graduates is not enough to fill out all the residency programs. So at end, all the residency program is not training enough doctors to actually fill the needs of the population. That's why we see doctors have to work a lot, and there's a lot of offers in terms of jobs, and there's a lot of areas of special needs where there was not enough doctors, where people still have to drive far. I mean, when you're fortunate enough to live in the big cities, you still go to the hospital and find it to be busy. Some areas in the United States, it's tough to find doctors, actually specialists, right? It's a big problem.
Wow, that's true. Thank you. So I think that's something that we don't really think about, the shortage, because we just think, hey, there's so many doctors to go around, and that's far from the case. So let's look at the specialties, and of course, salary, right? So as far as specialties are concerned, it seems as though there are certain specialties that IMGs gravitate towards. So One of them being internal medicine. More than 45,000 IMGs practice internal medicine, making it the most populated specialty among the segment. And then additionally, they have a large presence, actually the largest presence in geriatric medicine, where they make up more than half of the active physician population. So why is that? Why are IMGs gravitating towards these specialties?
Your answer is actually in the slide, to be honest with you. It's actually totally in the slide.
Yeah. So
Usually, if you have a lot of choices, mainly you're gonna choose the one that will pay you the most. And obviously, you will leave out the one that will give out the less money. That's the main. I mean, obviously, we're doing the real deal here at StudentProCONNECT. That's the way. So when most of them grad came out of medical school, I mean that's one factors, right? It's not just bid all, right? That's one factors. So when they have to choose, the first they will choose the specialty that is very very lucrative. The very it's something that they will choose the first. If you look at orthopedics, you look at plastic surgeon, dermatology, you're gonna find a lot of American grad, in those specialties, ophthalmology. Every year there was an amount of I would say spots in every specialties, right? Let's say there was 100 spot of dermatology. The first 100 people that can choose will choose those specialties first, right? So it will, the one that we left out usually, it's the one that not a lot of people will gravitate around, right? So this is where the IMGs come, and then this is where when we go further down in our in our conversation, you want to see the process of the matching process, which make the IMGs somehow quote unquote come last. So and then so we'll have a lot of us have to take what's left, right? You're gonna find a couple of positions stay in orthopedics. You're gonna find 100 positions in internal medicine when there was like 5 in orthopedics, right? In those 5 positions of 5 and 100, you see the difference, right? It's 95 more, right? That's why you're gonna find more IMJs, some specialties, not just because of the love, because a lot of people have their calls about it, but on top of everything, the most important thing is it's what's left, right? What's left, where the need is, right? And this is where the doctors will choose. The IMGs will go, oh, I can find here, I can find there, and you go there. That's why you find them mostly in those specialties.
Got it. So keeping it real is kind of like that's what's left over almost.
Exactly.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah, exactly. Most of them, as you can see, they work, make good money. You can. There's different ways you can work. You have good quality of life, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's mostly what's left. What's left.
What's left over.
Why,
Got it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, and then of course, I mean, we can see everyone's looking at the salaries. So you're pretty well. I mean, even at the bottom of the list with pediatrics, you still have a good income coming in to have a good quality of life, a good livelihood for sure.
Well, that's what we reported a lot. I mean, to make money, it's all depending on how you work, right? But that could be but you may find an government guy who's all the way up there with 500 more, right? To pick that guy with about 300. It's all depending on how you work. Where do you work? What are you willing to do? Your type of shifts you will take. If you work,
of course,
day shift, 9 shift in the big cities, little city, in all the way, as we would say, in the boondocks. So this is what's gonna determine, right? But this is a good representation of the salaries if everybody would work at the same amount in the same situations that what it would be.
Got it. Okay. All right, so let's kind of look at the doctor hierarchy. So you've been matched. So let's say you've been matched and you're in the system. So kind of walk us through, how does it work once we're in?
So that's what I was saying when I was from medical student to resident, to go to the actual field to work. As you can see on this slide, we see the medical student, you finish your college, you go to medical student and become an intern, you get to a resident. Basically, they're not using the word intern anymore. They use mostly PGY. Everybody is resident. It's a 3 years program. Some program is 3 to 5 years. You have the PGY 1, PGY 2, PGY 3. The PGY 1 is the one that's considered to be an intern. The PGY 2, 3 usually considered to be a resident. And after that, depending on which they're doing, it's all the way to 5. Sometimes PGY 4 can be a fellow, depending. For instance, if you're in medical, a PGY 4 in internal medicine is actually a fellow, right? And PGY 5 and go depending on what ship you're doing. It's all depending on which specialties you're going, and the attending going from the general medical attending hospitalist, and internal medicine, family practitioner, going all the way to a surgeon, surgeon, kind of attending you will have. So that's basically the hierarchy of it. But as you know, IMGs, and if we go back to our talk about IMGs and FMGs, we don't necessarily follow that same, that same pattern. You will rarely find an IMGs medical student on the floor unless it's an American. But the one we're talking about, you went to college here and go out, go to a to do school, you can hear actually medical student on the floor where you do your rotations. I have a lot of those coming here and do your rotation here while you're being at at a foreign school, in the Caribbean school. A lot of them, even in Indian, even some of them European schools. So actually do your rotation here in the United States, which give you exposure to the system, which is different. Typical foreign medical graduate where you just come here, you pass your test. The next time you're going to be on the floor here is to be an intern or PGY 1.
Okay, got it. So when they're doing rotations, are they considered a resident?
No, you're not a resident. You're a medical student. That's what doing. I would say the practice part of medicine. It's kind of, you are at the university, you learn all the theory, but actually seeing patients or actually observing people seeing patients, that's when you are on the floor, right? You're actually a medical student, you one with the resident, sometimes with FMG and so on and so forth.
Okay. All right, so let's walk through the process of the actual IMG. So what's the step? Because obviously it's different.
Well, the good thing about the everything really that I love the United States at a certain point where everybody has to meet, whether you are a US grad, a foreign medical grad, an IMGs, American going outside to to study to become a physician. Everybody has to meet at a certain point. So for everybody will study outside the country. You basically do all your process through the ACC FMG, right? So you go, eligibility, the school you go to, that's a legit school, recognized, part of the FMG, database. They accept you. They say you're good. You can apply actually to take the USMLE, the USMLE test, right? So when you start taking your USMLE test, it's basically for everybody actually, and that's what's interesting about these situations. The USMLE, United States Medical Licensing Examinations, everybody have to take that test, right? Whether you are an American grad, IMGs, FMGs, wherever, everybody has to take that test. You have to take. It's basically a 4-part test. Here they talk about 3. And funny part is the 3rd part has 2 parts, but they don't really talk about that 2 parts because you take it together. So you have the step 1 after you get your eligibility. Now you register to pass the USMLE exam. So you have to pass the first step. The step has two clinical skills, the CS, where you actually going to see a few patients coming, basically you have to, actually see patients that step, the step 3, where basically it's divided by 2, where you have to take. But the step 3, as you see in your slide here, you can actually be in residency and not pass your step 3 yet, even though it's not advisable for uh, mainly for the US grad. I've even seen some US grad who actually get into residency without finishing this the step 2, which is basically a big no-no for IMGs. So anyway, you have to at least pass for an IMGs pass step 1, step 2, CK, and CS to be eligible for a residency. That's why IMGs. And while you are in residency, you have to take your step 3 and obviously apply for your board to become a board certified physician, and you will be good to go.
Okay. Now, how would you say, how long does this process take?
It depends. Some of it depend on you. Some of it depend on, on the system. I cannot really give you an average, because if you're an IMGs, because that's the main people about. If you are completely where all your studies you were doing them, to a foreign country, never been in the system, none of this, able to make it in 1 or 2 years. The quickest I know is one of my friends. I think he did it in 8. Uh, that the quickest people did it completely outside of the country, meaning go step 1, step 2, CK and CS. The quickest I've known is about 18 months. I know one of my friends who did it like that, or 12 months.
Wow.
Anything back between 1 year to 4 years. It depends.
Okay. Wow. 18 months. And that must mean like back to back to back, right? Right after the other.
Yes, that was the quickest. I mean, obviously that's something
Yeah.
I haven't done it, so it was not my case.
Yeah.
It's one of the quickest 21 that I've known. Maybe we have quicker one.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, from the time you take the decision, right? Because there is a part, and that's not being discussed enough. When you take the decision, right, as an internal, as an FMGs, like we talk about people from completely outside the US, to actually
Yes.
say, I want to pass USMLE, I want to go through the system, and to actually finish everything. I think the quickest 21 that I've known is about 18 months to 2 years.
Okay.
That's the quickest I've known. Because when you
Okay.
have to get all this SFMG done, I
Mhm.
register for the test,
Yeah.
prep for the test, and go for step 1, step 2, CK, CS, it takes time, those
Definitely.
things.
Definitely.
So yeah.
Yeah. And I think that brings us right into the challenges. So that time frame is going to definitely, be different for each person, and there are challenges. I mean, let's be real, right? There are challenges when you are an IMG and you enter these postgraduate programs. Some actually cited are biased perceptions, right? So that's first and foremost. Communication skills, right? So there's language barriers for international physicians. And then last but not least, professional and social acculturation, right? So, you come from a country and you're used to doing things a different way. Would you find that these kind of are the challenges that IMGs face?
Exactly. That's among a lot of other challenges that we are facing. Obviously, you don't really know too much about medicine, especially if you're not speaking English that well. Like as you can hear, I have an accent. And most of people who are like really, foreign medical graduate. Most of them have accent, from and communication with patients, even with medical students. nurses, with professional, can be a little challenging, and and obviously the social part, the culture, sometimes we don't really know the culture that well. That's why a lot of programs, most of the programs here, they have to give you those kind of training. What's accepted, what's not accepted. How those stuff here, how medicine is practiced here in the United States. You know, well, yeah, it's a lot of challenges, but it's not just that. From the time you start the process to actually get into a residency, if you ask any G who with point blank FMGs, somebody was completely foreign to the system, it would tell you the biggest challenge is actually to find a spot in residency. That's the one that's the biggest, right? But yeah, we're facing a lot. I mean, there was a lot of challenge, but it's not impossible. I'm here. I'm not gonna say it's something that's impossible. It's actually not impossible. And I'm somebody who believes that it's something without challenge, it's nothing, right? Challenge, really motivates me. That's how I go through life. I like to see something that that's impossible. Like, okay, I mean, when you make it possible, the reward is way better than just with something without challenge. And I believe even American God, they have their own challenge too. They have tests to pass, and so on and so forth. So I see everything, you will find challenges.
Exactly. I mean, going through these challenges makes it all worth it in the end. It's like you get through it and you do it, and like you said, you're a great example. You're a living examples of it. So let's get into your story. Let's talk about Frederick's story. So your journey, you actually graduated from the State University of Haiti School of Medicine in 2004. And then you went on to do your USMLE Step 1, your Step 2, which got you ES certification. And then you went on to do Step 3. You entered into residency in New York, and you did your 3 years, and eventually you got your internal medicine board certification. So can you give us a little, idea of how you got through it?
I wish it was that linear.
We probably don't have enough time.
The way you show it like, wow, 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, yeah.
No, that was, I mean, that's probably the steps, that to where I'm at. But that was definitely that, that straightforward, linear, take your step 1, step 2. That was not that format. That was not my case. But yeah, but I had to do all that, that's basically what it was. So after I graduated medical school in Haiti, I did, my first choice was to stay home and work as a doctor. So that was what I wanted to do. That was what I was doing. So from 2004, 5, all the way to 2009, I worked as a general practitioner back home. So work as a doctors, and work in different, probably we're gonna go to what I did. So, but in 2009, 10, I decided to actually leave the country for a lot of different reasons. So this is the time that, as I was saying previously, when I actually take the decision, right, to say, you know what, I'm going to leave my country. I'm going to start doing residency. I'm going to try to get into the American system. This is the time I start gathering information, knowing what to do, but just to get to the SFMG situations, get, my school was, school I was qualified. So, and then we just for step 1. And then obviously I went for the step 1. The first time I tried, I didn't make it because I was not ready, or I didn't have enough information. So we'll go through that and that's why I believe what StudentProCONNECT is doing is something extremely great, because that will definitely help us share our experience with other people, the mix way, the information available for us, all those, we have to make sure we share that with the new generation. But anyway, eventually I ended up passing my step 1, my step 2, got my SFMG certificate, and then obviously get here to try to get into the system. And when I arrived, I realized the toughest part was not actually passing step one and step two, was actually residency. And to get into that residency, I needed to pass step three. So that's why I went ahead and say, you know what, as an IMGs, it's better you prepared, you have everything on your side, you did everything that's depend on you. So I went and do my step three before in 2015. That was basically I started the whole process basically back in 2010. So 2015, that's 5 years later. I ended up into a residency, and yeah, and I finishing up now. I'm a board certified internal medicine doctor.
Wow, that's amazing. I know I said it so 1, 2, 3, but it really is a journey. I mean, it really is. It seems like, you went through the process. And I'm just wondering, did you take breaks in between, or did you just continuously go? Was it a continuous journey?
So for me, I would not say I took breaks in between. So when I started the process, I didn't start the process while I was living here in the United States. So I'm a complete foreign medical graduate. That I was graduate in the foreign country, and I take most of my tests in the foreign country, right? So I was living outside of the country while I was prepared to pass those tests, right? So I didn't really take breaks in between. By the time I finished my step to CK and came here for my CS, when I started actually living here full time after I take the CS, so it took me about, let's say, about 6 months to go, 6 months to 8 months to go between the CS and the step three. I remember I passed my CS around, then it was like around October, and then going all the way by June, July, I realized I was not going to go to residency without step three, and I was already in the process of finishing up the prep. So I just go ahead and pass it, because the first year I went to get residency, I could not have residency without it. So yeah, I didn't not take breaks in between, but what I have after I finished all these tests, it was another journey for me to actually find a spot in residency, which we'll talk about the reason why.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let's talk about your experience. I guess once you got here, or I guess not just here in the US, but overall, you've kind of held so many different titles. So you've been a general practitioner, you've been a professor, you've been a medical assistant, scribe/scribe, you've been a clinical documentation improvement specialist, and hospitalist. So kind of walk us through these. What do all these titles come with?
A lot of them are things that, as you can see, that I've done while I was living here trying to get residency. As I said, initially, after I finished medical school in Haiti, I wanted to stay in Haiti. I started working as a general practitioner. I was working in hospitals, clinic, working for NGOs, where I was having a career as anybody who finish university and have a profession, you have a career. So at that time as well, I was teaching as well, at university, some schools, I was doing some class on the side, helping out, because I love to teach. It's one of the things that I love to do. So for the first 5 years of my career, that's what I was doing. Now, when I moved and I started the project of trying to come here and work as a physician here in the United States, this is where I could not work anymore as a physician, right? Because I didn't have a license to work here as a physician. I couldn't even work as a professor that I used to do because I was not a professor here, so I didn't have the even though you could do that, there is some programs where as a foreign trained, you can have some teaching job. But for me, that was not what I did. What I did was I wanted to work in the medical system and having more exposure and experience, which is one of those things that will help you. And I believe that was going to help me finding residency, being matched in a residency program. So that's how I work as a medical assistant. I work with different doctors. I assist them, seeing patients with them, scribing from them for them, going hospitals. I did an externship in hospitals to have more experience, and I work a lot in clinical documentation improvement, in CDI as we call it. And you're gonna find a lot of IMGs here while they are in their transition after they pass the test to get into residency. You're gonna find a lot of them work those profession, right? Those jobs, I would say, medical assistants, scribes, CDI. A lot of them unfortunately can't match or cannot find a match or cannot pass the test. Point blank, end up being working in those jobs as a career, right? So I know a lot of guys, works like that, make good money, lives their life, fine living like working like that. So those are everything that I've done while I was here. Mainly, I work as a medical assistant, scribe, CDI specialist here while I was in the process of going to residency.
Okay.
And then obviously now I'm working as an hospitalist.
Okay. Would you say that working in those jobs in between, did they help you in being a better hospitalist?
Absolutely, absolutely. As a foreign medical graduate, one of the biggest, challenge you have is to know how the system work, right? Because the American healthcare system work differently than a lot of, every countries have their own healthcare system, and the American system is a system by itself. It's a completely different beast, as I would say. So when you work those jobs, you basically know you have some exposure. You see how things are being done. You see how doctors conduct themselves, how patients, what are the patients expecting, and you start getting, inside into the culture. You start understanding how medicine is practiced here, right? A lot of things that I didn't know were being done without even with all my experience working as a physician back in my country. A lot of things that I've learned was while I was working as a scribe, while I was working as a medical assistant. I've seen, the approach. I've seen the way people are. I see the expectations. I start understanding all the legal part of medicine in the U.S. when I work in CDI. The importance of documentations, the importance of everything clear. If you don't write something, you didn't do it, right? It's one of the things that I used to do when I was working as a CDI specialist. It's basically reviewing chart and basically go back to the doctors. Hey, what did you do for that? This, there is, you didn't follow that protocol. There is, this is how it should be done, right? So I've learned those things while I was working, and those are very valuable stuff that I've learned that are all the way to today helping me
That's
being
amazing.
the hospitalist that I am today.
That's awesome. All right. So we've already been keeping it real, but let's get into the real deal. So, first and foremost, what would you have done differently?
Ah, I'm not the kind of person who likes to say, I should have done something different, because obviously I believe we grow, as we change. Obviously, we know better, right? It's one of those slogans of StudentProCONNECT, right?
Yeah.
So what I would have done differently, if I have to go to do it all back again, I would have known, first of all, it's a very challenging process. It's a process that you have to take your time to do, right? You cannot take chances, right? It's very, very competitive out there, right? So if you want to get into that system, you want to be a physician here in the United States, the most important thing is you have to be on top of the top. What I used to believe and what I was being told when I get into that process, they say you just need to pass the test. Well, that's not true. You need to ace the test, meaning having 99%, right? I know now it's a three-digit standard, like 250 and up, right? They would not look at you if you're not like perfect, but which is a lot different, right? I as an FMGs or an IMGs, as you would call it, you need to be perfect, right? Like 99% you have to do on the test, right? I'm going to say it, and that's the truth, right?
Mhm.
So that's number one. So when you're going to take the test, you have to make sure that you're going to ace it. Because if you start being in the 90s, in the 80s, then it's going to be tough. Some program will not even look at you. That's number one. So number two, the timing of it. One of the things that I would have done differently, a lot of programs would eliminate you, not giving you a spot just because you are graduated too long ago, right? Some programs just ask you to, at least 5 years you need. Like the earlier you do it, the quicker you do it, the better it is. Look at me who has, stayed home and worked 5 years. But maybe if I have done that, that's not something that would completely eliminate you from the system. So you can still find a chance to get into it. But if you think it's something that you might want to do, the earlier the better.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
And thirdly, I would definitely try to know the system a little better before I even start the process. But as I said, to start answering the question, sometimes when you have all those informations too, there may be the reason why you don't do anything,
That's
right?
true.
The
That's
fact, the
true.
lack of knowledge may be the reason why you go for
True.
it. And
Because
you even
you
try
might
it.
get scared away with all the information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't
Yeah.
want to say that and scare people away. Say, you know what? Me, I already have 8 years. Man, you went after 5 years. I can go after 8 years. Yeah, you can go. If 15 years, you
Yeah.
can go. The only thing it's gonna be more difficult and challenging, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's why I don't like to say, what I would have done differently. Maybe if
Yeah.
I've done those things that I've done today, maybe I would not do it at all altogether.
Got it. Makes sense. Were there mentors along the way? Because this is a long journey, and tough one. So did you find mentors along the way?
Yes, yes and no. I have a lot of, I have my friend who basically, it's something that I was thinking until I have a friend who basically lay the process around to me and give me some informations. And I always consider being a mentor, but finding somebody who really, help me out, you know, actually being a mentor to me, I did
Mm-hmm.
not have that. And it's one of the things that I wish that I really had that would
Right.
basically guide me into the process. You're gonna take the test. Here's when you're ready. Here's the amount of, here's how you have to pass it, you
Yeah.
know, some of that
Yeah.
nature. And I think for me that would have been helpful, but
Okay.
unfortunately I didn't have, that
Okay.
much, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then as far as misconceptions, I know we've actually, spoken about a few already. But did we miss any? I know we talked about the shortage, we think there's enough. So that's one. Any other misconceptions?
A lot of misconceptions. One of the biggest, as I said, a lot of people would see, an IMGs or a foreign doctors on the floor, and first of all, automatically think this is somebody who comes from a foreign country, not necessarily, right?
Yes,
Or you
yes.
see an American, autochthone, as you would call it, on the floor. You see,
Yeah,
this guy has studied here in the United States, not necessarily.
true.
It may be
Yeah.
an IMG as well. Okay,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
that's one. Another one that you would see, oh, if it's foreign doctors, it doesn't know what it's doing. It was trained, in a foreign country, likely don't know medicine.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not true because in the system, everybody has to take the same test at a certain point,
Yes.
and everybody have to have the same training,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
That's right. So the same way you can find a great doctors with the foreign doctors, you can find a great American doctors, it can be a great foreign doctors. It's the same
It's the
system that
same
trained them,
system.
and they
Okay. It's
have to
not
pass the
different.
same test. There was
Got
no
it.
difference, right?
Got it.
So it's
Got
not,
it.
it's not because he's a foreign doctor, he's not speaking good English like me.
Yeah.
So it's not,
But it's the
I don't
same.
make a mistake.
You guys have the same knowledge, same
The
thing.
same training, the
Yes.
same thing. Obviously,
Yes.
you're gonna find one that's better than other. That's the same way you would find, among every kind of group, but it's the same. It's the same thing. It's the same standardized test, the same standardized training, the same everything.
Okay. Biggest challenge, I would say, I mean, just from hearing you, I think it's just getting that residency spot. But what is the most challenging?
The most challenging nowadays is to find a residency spot.
Yeah.
Foreign medical doctors. Now we're being completely real. That's the most challenging. Because the reason why, first, it does not all the time depend on you, number one. And number two, is highly, highly competitive. So now, the way you pass the test is one. When you were graduated at medical school, the year of graduation, as they call it here, is important, right? That's two. And obviously, your experience to the American medical system is another one. And one of the most important things, the recommendations, right? I could have put that first to be completely real, but you need good recommendations, right? You need good letters of recommendations, and then you need to have all those and have good recommendations, right? So those are the four things you need to actually find a spot in the residency. And as I said, to begin our conversation tonight, the first one it's the same way you see after college, you may not find a spot in medical school. It becomes 10 times more difficult after medical school to find a spot in residency. For each spot in residency, you may have 1,000 people actually applying for that one spot.
Okay. Wow.
Right. So it's a lot, and obviously there is a money burden as well. So sometimes you have to apply to thousands program to find one, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the biggest challenge for an IMGs is to find a residency. But as I said, it's not impossible, right? But if you're well prepared, you're in the time frame, you have better chances. And obviously, if you come here, you're here in the United States, better chances to get into the system. But after you get into the residency, everything else has become a little bit easier, to finish. Obviously, you need to be serious, but to finish, to find a job afterwards.
Exactly. And I think that leads us right into the next question, which is, what is the biggest reward? So once you're in, I guess that's the reward.
I mean, the biggest reward, obviously, is to practice your profession. Me, that was my biggest reward, is to become a doctor again, because that's my profession. That's what I know how to do. Taking care of people, being a physician, that's my passion. That's what I want to do. And obviously, that's the biggest reward, no matter how much you make, how much less, if you have more money, if it's not a better specialties, whatever it could be, being, get back and having that's, that first love that you are doing back home, and you're able to do that, you're in your field, that's the biggest reward for me. But obviously, that's the part where you work, you have jobs, so on and so forth.
Exactly. Now, you've been in the industry for a while. What changes have you seen?
A lot of change. A lot of change. And obviously, as a physician, the practice of medicine is different, right? It's evolving every day. And we will not even talk about what's happening now during COVID time. What will happen in the development of telemedicine and the way medicine is being practiced. But the profession itself is changing, constantly changing. And even the job market is changing. The insurance is, payments changing. Obviously, it could be challenging, very something that can, push you to do better, to be better. But yeah, there was a lot of change in the industry right now, and it could sound scary sometimes for some physicians, the way things are changing. But at the same time, it's always changed, not necessarily for the worse. I'm a very optimistic person. So I believe changes, there was always good in every change. So I
Definitely.
believe there are good things coming from it as well. But the
Yeah.
industry is changing a lot
Yeah.
as we speak right now.
And I think also with change also comes opportunity. So that's, with
Of
new
course.
changes always comes new opportunity. So that's a good way
E-
of looking at it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then
Exactly.
the last question is there room for growth in the field?
Oh yeah. Oh, of course.
Okay.
Medicine, obviously, with the change of society, how we become more, automated, more, look at the way we're doing, a show today. I'm in front of a computer, in front of a computer. We don't need the big apparat to do anything,
Yeah.
and we can touch, thousands of millions of people if we have people coming on. As many
Yeah.
people wants to see or can see us at the same time.
Yeah.
So which make us believe that medicine, there was a lot of room for growth. The way we approach patients is different. I mean, with the development of telemedicine now, you can sit home, basically, they take care of you. The robotic medicine, a lot of things are changing.
Yeah.
It's, there was, I would say from what I've seen personally, I think we're still a baby, right?
Wow. Wow.
Medicine, believe it or not, it's a profession that's been there for so long, but I think we're still a baby, right? And and I can just take an example with you. Look at what COVID is doing to us.
Yes. Yes.
Look at what COVID is
It
doing to us, right?
exactly.
You would think, at the level we are right now, a virus would have already have, a complete mastery of virus, because we've been dealing with virus for centuries, right? Right? We
Yeah.
had one virus come and basically shut down medicine. That's what I
Yes.
usually say. I tell my colleagues, hey, COVID just shut us down.
Yeah. So it's
Shut us
like
down, make
you
us
don't
change
know
the way
what's
we practice, and
exactly.
we
You don't know
don't know
what's
what, and
exactly. You don't know what's gonna come your way, and it just
exactly.
completely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just one example, right? We think about
Yes.
some of the
Yes.
cancers, its treatment, and the way we approach
Yes.
patients, right? So we're still babies. There's still a lot to do. There's a lot of room for growth, in
I think
this
that's really
industry.
motivating. I think that's really
Of
motivating
course,
to hear you
of
say that.
course, of
Yeah.
course, it's humbling too. It's humbling
Yeah.
for everybody. And unfortunately, we got into that bad cycle with everything that's happening with COVID. We're not seeing, obviously it's a tragedy, right? But we're
Yeah.
not seeing the challenge. Me as a physician, as a professional, I'm looking at it as a challenge. I'm looking at, wow, look at
Yeah.
that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Look at that. And it's a worldwide thing. So we have to make more research. We have to invest more. We're not
Yeah.
as advanced as we thought we were, right?
Of course.
So
Of
we need to
course.
do stuff, right? So yeah, I
Yes.
believe there was a lot of room to go from the practice of medicine to the actually delivery of the care to patient. A lot of room
Okay.
for growth.
Okay. All right,
Very
let's
good.
get right into our questions. We have a few questions coming in, and we're actually running out of time. So, from Merlene, we have, would you recommend working at a hospital or a medical clinic to get the experience?
So if you want to be, first of all, both of them's good. I mean, both good, right? I mean, it's better. A clinic is better than nothing. But being in a medical, in an actual hospital would be better for you if you want to be a resident, because this is where you really going to work. As a resident, even if you are doing, like, let's say, a specialty like internal medicine or family medicine, most of the time you're going to be in the hospital. So you
Yeah.
will work with the resident. So you would need to know the hospital system better than knowing the clinic. You would be rarely in the clinic, right?
Yeah.
When I was in residency, like 4 weeks hospital, 1 week clinic, right?
Yeah.
So that show you the best way to be if you want to have more exposure. If you have to choose between the two, being in the hospital is your pick.
Okay, great. And then we have a question from Gerda. She says, from your experience, is there a specific age to start medical school?
I don't like to put age on anything because I believe, you can do everything at any age. But obviously, if you are a young kid, that's what you want. The earlier you do it, the better it is, right? After you finish college here, and then I think you finish at 22, 22, right? That's how it is here. And I think it's 21, 22, you finish college. Yeah, this is the time to go to medical school. If you want to do it, you just do it to finish because it's a long process. There was 4 years medical school, and after that, you have to go to residency. Some of them go anything. The shortest one is 3 years. The longest can go all the way to 7 years. So you're there for 11 years, right? If you're doing the longest thing. So the earlier you go, the better it is.
Okay. Okay. And your takeaway, Dr. Laborde, what is the one piece of advice? You've given us so much already, but what would be the biggest thing you'd want someone to take away? Someone who's, thinking about, practicing here in the US, what would you tell them?
You have to be devoted. You shouldn't do medicine. You shouldn't try to get into the system, or you're just trying to get into it. Like it's something that you're just throwing something, if it's stick, it's stick. You're not throwing something in the wall, right? If it's what you want to do, you have to do what it takes to do it. And you have to accept the challenges, right? So if you're an IMGs, you want to become a doctor here in the United States. If you're not, emotionally and spiritually prepared to get to that process, you're gonna have problems. You can do it in one shot. You may have to wait 10 shots to do it, right? But if you want to do it, you have to stay at it and keep trying. And I know people, I know friends of mine who tried once and then boom, they do it. I had to try a couple of times before I did it. I had to wait 3 to 4 years before I find a residency. I know guys who wait 10 years to find residency. I know guys who take the test the first time they try. I know guys who take the test 10 times before they do the test, right? So, but the good thing is to stay at it. Try, and try. If it's what you want, I always believe nature always answer when you knock hard and long enough.
Yes.
You just have to keep knocking, and you have to keep knocking hard and continue to knock. Don't just knock 1 or 2 times and say, you know what, I'm out. If you do it like that, probably you may not be able to do it. But if you're doing it, you stay at it, no, there was a big chance you will, you will make it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Dr. Laborde, you have given us so much insight tonight. It seems like, we're still having questions pouring in. If we weren't able to get to your questions tonight, please be sure to sign up on StudentProConnect.com. Subscribe to our database. We're going to have these shows. So please, if you want to, be in, make sure you're aware and you're aware of all the shows happening, be sure to sign up. You have given us so much insight tonight, Dr. Laborde. We thank you and we appreciate it so much.
You're welcome anytime, and I will be always available for Student Pro Connect. I think it's a great initiative, and I think we should continue on the same climb, right?
Yes.
And congratulations for that process. I would say for that idea. It's a good initiative.
Thank you so much. So please, my people watching, register on the site, download the app, which is available on Google Play as well as the App Store. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, on Facebook and Twitter. And we look forward to seeing you again in our next show on May 5th, where we will actually be featuring a lawyer. So please stay tuned for that. Mark your calendars. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.